skip on and let me press that. They used to skip on records, meaning they'd move double time on records, and sometimes they weren't able to say much because they didn't figure out how to put, the most amount of words between, two bar segments or whatever. But they used to
Yeah,
just
yeah.
so it all spawned from there in England. So nobody can't really say that it didn't happen. That was like late 70s, early 80s that started in England with a sound called Saxon sound out of England. And that's where the style originated from. And, I basically was listening to them when I was 10, 11 years old. And then I developed my own style, which was basically finding a way to fill up in between the two bars that they couldn't fill up.
Yeah.
And, the style was born from there.
That's crazy. I actually have, I'm from Riverside, California, which is not too far from LA. And in the 90s, when I was growing up, there was a big ska and punk scene. Actually, we have, they were kind of slash ska slash kind of punk, but there was a band called Voodoo Glow Skulls.
Okay.
That we grew up with. And it was really big. Even Sublime, early Sublime had a lot of kind of ska sound to it.
Yes.
Horns, stuff like that. So it's actually really musical. I actually heard that ska somewhat is making its comeback. It's just been kind of non-existence. But I'm hearing.
It is. I'm hearing a lot of people talking about myself. Like a lot of people are sending me ska tracks now to get on from the UK. And it's kind of weird because you're asking somebody not from the UK to get on a ska record that's produced fully by a UK producer. So that just puts me in a different headspace and lets me know that what I've been doing, people appreciate it, which is cool for me.
Yeah, and then artistically, even if it's a newer sound, does that change the way you go into it?
No, nothing basically would change. I mean, I changed up a lot just to get to a point where, you grow as an artist, you grow, as the years go by, you have new experiences and new challenges. So certain things change and your approach to everything change, even musically. So for me right now, I think I am deadlier than I used to be. You know what I mean? So, which is a good thing because there's new material coming out soon. So I'm happy about that. But just the fact that people are just, it doesn't stop. They continue to reach out to me to jump on tracks and, I enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you know what? That's actually, I'm glad you said you enjoy it because I asked this question a lot with the podcast. Mm-hmm. The music business is a treacherous one. You know what I mean? And a lot of time there's a lot of good, but there's a lot of bad with it. So, I asked this question genuinely. It's, do you still enjoy the business part of it? Of course, we all still are going to love music. You know what I'm saying? But with the bad and the good, is it something that genuinely you still enjoy to do?
Answer that very simple. If it's good business, yes.
Yeah.
If it's bad business, I can't do it. Do I enjoy the culture? Of course, I'm a b-boy until I can't b-boy no more. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's hurtful to see other artists go through what they go through, who are stuck in certain contracts that they can't get out of and no longer, don't own their masters. And, I'm just happy that De La Soul was able to get back, all their masters from Tommy Boy. So, you have a lot of people who are now focused on actually saying to themselves, I put a lot of work and energy into, my craft. So I should at least own half of it or own it in its entirety. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Good music, I love. I mean, good business, I love. Bad business, I can't mess with that.
And I feel, I'd feel bad for, I mean, obviously De La Soul, ended up winning that battle, if you will. Right. But, back then it was so new and people were just so happy to be like, yo, I brought this from my street, from my block, and I made it, I'm on a worldwide tour. I'm on this and no one really knew about the business. And in fact, I was having a conversation with Big Whutz from Above the Law. And he was like, one thing that was crazy is you felt like you were doing good business because you were seeing money, but just the education wasn't there. And he was like, honestly, some of these record execs, it was still so new for them that they didn't even fully screw an artist how they actually could have as well. You know what I mean? They could have really screwed it, but they only did it halfway because that's what they knew. But, I think that's huge. When you get into music to really learn the business. I mean, it's, I think Little Brother is also going through something right now too with, they repressed one of their albums right now and it has nothing to do with them and stuff like that. But they're going to have to do this with like how De La Soul did now, and it's like, it's so much more on the forefront digitally now though, because everything's right in front of your face. It's a button, right. It's a, a phone, it's a Zoom call, it's this and that. How did you adapt to the business even back then, even if it was bad business? How did you adapt?
1 second. This is weird. You're gonna have to cut this out.
No, it's all good.
Now I got to call you back in 10 minutes. Let me call you back. All right, good.
All last year was crazy. All last year I was doing, because of COVID and everything, I was doing Instagram lives. But I'm gonna tell you, editing is so I like it so much better that it's not live, because just anything goes and we just make the show look crazy.
Make it look like how you want it to be. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
No, just how did you adapt even back then? Even if it was bad business, you guys still had to, you still on a contract, you still had to roll, or and good business too. I'm not just trying to bring up the bad, but how did you adapt business wise to something that was so new? Especially back then, you probably just wanted to rap. You just want to make music.
Well, I could answer that question. For me, how did I adapt to it? I had to basically be in the headspace of understanding that the position that I held in the family, I was basically able to do certain things for the family that weren't able to be done. So when it came to the business was good enough for me to get certain things done in my household and to take care of my family. So I didn't look at it as bad business, because I was able to bring money home into the household by touring and
absolutely
merch and everything else, until I found out about the bad business. And then it kind of hurt me in a sense where at that point I was like, well, dang, I could have been bringing home more money, but whatever it is that was coming in at the time basically was more than what we had at the time. You get me? So I was thankful for that and appreciative. And I just turned the negative into the positive, and we were able to just, different. We live different, coming from the West Indies to East Flatbush, Brooklyn, and then to have, your son as an artist and bringing in a larger sum of money was a good look, to make sure that the household was taken care of. We were ahead of bills. We didn't have to worry about anything, basically. So that's how I felt about that situation until I found out about the bad business, and then I had to actually do my own studies. Everybody had to go buy that book, what there is to know about the music industry. Read it from cover to cover. Now I'm more sharper and understand what I want and what I need. But back then, like you said, there were some record execs that didn't even know. They were taking contracts from other record companies, or they had like a contract that was just like a stencil contract that everybody was actually getting. And this was like, well, this became the norm to people, because you go to a certain page and be like, bro, this is the same contract. It's just different names or whatever on it. You know what I mean? But I'm glad I got past that and I'm where I'm at now. But, I think in this day and age, because of the digital age and everything that's happening, I think that, companies need to just be fair and square about everything, because you have kids younger than us that found ways to get rid of the middleman right now.
Yeah.
And, they're not even really looking at record companies. So.
No, for sure. And it's interesting because as they're losing their grip, the record companies, they're trying to do things to tighten their grip. But I don't think that, and they always want their money. So that's the time will tell. But I actually think in the long run, that's going to hurt them more, rather than just to come back to the table and be like, yo, okay, let's work together on something, because as a record company, I can definitely spearhead some things that you're not going to be able to as independent artists.
Agreed.
But you own, I didn't have to put you in a studio to go do this. I didn't have to do this. You hired your homeboy to do the video for, this amount of money. And and that's another thing, we bring up a lot is like even videos and visuals, which obviously is really big right now in this era. I'm not sure what, like the videos cost, when you guys did the what's up, Doc, and this and that. But it was crazy amount of money.
Yes,
you know what I mean? To where now, not even a 0.8 of that you can film just a great video right now and on your own and take it home and edit it, this and that. So, you know, I think in the long run, that's going to kind of hurt some of these labels if they don't come back to the table and, you know, figure it out. Excuse me.
A lot of these artists are going to start looking at certain labels as banks now. If we're going to do business, you can bankroll what I'm trying to do, and we could share something, or you know, give me a larger percentage on the dollar side when it comes to certain things, because now, you know, they figured it out.
Yeah.
But you can actually, there was always a problem with speaking to your fans directly because your fans were scattered all over the world. So, you know, you'd have to go to that country to talk to your fans. But now with the internet, you know, whoever's your fan is reaching out to you. They want to know where you're at. They're searching for you. They know where you're at. They're buying into your brand. So now these record companies are at a point in time where, like what you said, they have to sit down and do good business now.
Yeah, they got to definitely regroup. And you know, videos back then, man, on film. I mean, you basically had to get advances to do stuff like that. The technology wasn't there. And I think that's a term you don't hear a lot now, advances and this and that. You know, people have home studios that they can make sound crazy. You know, I could record a verse right here behind me that sounds like I'm in a studio. You know what I mean? Like, period. So again, I don't know if that's the right philosophy, but again, you know, that's the power of the pen and power of technology. You know, you got to utilize. You know, I'm surprised though that they act like that though, because I mean, the internet just makes everything so accessible. I can look up right now on Google, what does a record label do to make a successful artist? And there's going to be 1,000 forums on there, people talking, even ex-record execs, you know, are going to be talking, oh, do this, do this. One thing I do think is missing, and I want your opinion on this. You know, there was a something called artist development. And I think, that is completely missing now. But I did read something that said like 100,000 artists drop songs a day on, you know, iTunes or whatever they use, you know, and how do you stand out? And I say the same thing. You stand out by artist development. You know, how do you develop and build yourself and make yourself as artists better? You know, talk a little bit about what artist development was in your day at that time and kind of what you had to do.
Artist development was more so about timing and preparation, right? Every time we would prepare 4 months prior to a release. So we knew that within the next 4 months, we're preparing. And we had the single mixed, mastered, video prepared. We already had gotten in touch with certain late night television shows to help in the promotion of the single. So we had this whole rollout prepared, where if you weren't rolling out like us, you just couldn't, you know, you were never around. No one was actually seeing your product. You get me?
Yeah.
So I think that's the difference with back then is they schooled us on how to talk. They schooled us on being prepared for the long haul, not the quick buck or the quick haul. It was the long haul. Like, listen, you know, this is an album. You have 3 singles, 3 or 4 singles. If it blows up, you know what I'm saying, you're looking at 4 or 5 singles, or we're just going to keep going. You get me? So for us, we always, when recording, we made sure that we had more than 3 standout records. These kids did recording. So we knew this is our first single, this is our second single, and this third single basically is supposed to bring you over the hump. Your first single gets the attention. Second single keeps people's attention. The third single brings you over the hump to either gold or platinum. Then from there, it's either you're running back in to record, you know, to meet certain deadlines, or you're cruising. Because one album could have you touring for 3 years.
Yeah.
If it's promoted, right. If it's promoted and marketed properly, like how we did it. Now, since everything is just so cookie cut and quick and fast, a person to drop an album yesterday and by next week it's just like, yeah, I heard that, it's on to the next.
And it's so crazy because it's such a weird dynamic that at one part you got to let a single breathe and get its wings, but at the same time, if it doesn't get its wings right away, like you said, next week that shit's done. You know, I give a perfect example. Tone Loc. Tone Loc was still touring off of 3 singles. Wild Thing, Funky Cold Medina, and I forget, but either way, he's still touring off of those singles.
There you go.
So it's so hard. And I think maybe this is where a label or a machine would come in. How long do you let it breathe? How long do you be, okay, this isn't getting its wings. Okay, this is a crazy dynamic here in 2021 with this music.
Yeah, the one thing with the machines is they knew they were able to push certain buttons that indies couldn't push.
Yeah.
Because if the single was moving a certain way, they started to think remix quicker. All right, let's remix it and put that person on it. Relaunch. You relaunch, or you do a maxi single, or a maxi single, or considered an EP in a sense, where you have the single which was kind of smart, the single with 6 remixes on there, which is considered an EP.
Yeah.
So that hits 250,000, which is automatically considered gold because it's an EP. So the engine from back then understood how to make their money back then. That's the one thing I could give them. So I learned a lot from how they did it. Applying it in these days now, it's kind of hard because the amount of money that we used to spend, you don't have to spend like that no more.
Absolutely.
You don't have to spend like that no more. You could have your home studio set up. Producers nowadays is just trying to get on and do whatever. Everything that you would have in a huge studio, there's a plug-in for that now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Total plug-in. So
I just bought one that for the output of something that is like how you put music on a record. So on my output, it gives us like an analog sound with the different needles and different. It's crazy.
There you go. So just knowing that moving forward, it's just like all you have to do is basically stay in that creative zone and build a team that understands what's going on now, and just make sure that your rollout is prepared, because you get lost, man. You get lost.
What was the first single? Was what, Breakdown? Was that your first one?
The first album, the first single off the first album was Ring the Alarm.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, damn.
Second single was True Fu-Schnickens. Third single was Lash Move.
Oh, Lash Move, that was my stuff.
We had the single in between that, which was the What's Up Doc with Shaquille O'Neal. Then right after What's Up Doc, see, like I was saying, What's Up Doc, when that was happening, we had to run back in the studio, because we saw now we got everybody's attention. Now we got the attention. So then we dropped Breakdown after that. That blew everything. That just blew the door off the hinges, and everybody was like, "Oh, I fuck with them now." You know what I mean? So then we.
And being here in Cali, Breakdown, was on the radio every day.
Yes,
every day.
Yes, I know. Which was crazy to me when I finally got there, and everybody was like, "Yo, where are you guys from?" I was like, "East Flatbush, Brooklyn." But this record is like a West Coast record. I was like, "No, we were taught to just make records. It wasn't about just make a record." You know what I mean? And that second album really taught us a lot about making records. You know what I mean? We didn't.
Yeah.
They couldn't title us or whatever. A lot of people just thought we was from Long Island because the type of records we were making. And you got a dancehall record, you got a this record. We was like, yo, we just like making music. You know what I mean?
But I think nowadays people don't see what a big deal that was to have something like Breakdown sounding like that, and West Coast radios just playing the shit out. That's huge, and I don't think people see how huge that was.
No, they don't. The thing about it is, for me to go to perform Breakdown, and it's Drew Down. You got Drew Down on the bill. You got Biggie on the bill. You got Craig Mack on the bill, and you got the Fu-Schnickens on the bill. And we headlined because Breakdown was that big in the West Coast. So when we tell people that, they was like, wait a second. You headlined over Biggie and everybody else? I was like, yeah, you can ask Drew Down. We were on the same bill, and we had to perform Breakdown 7 times. 7. Like all the other records we were performing, they was just like, yeah, okay. But when Breakdown came on, it was hysteria in there, and they just kept saying, yo, we performed it 7 times in a row. That's when I knew. I was like, God damn, 7 times? Oh, okay.
Wow. Now, I know you got a new album, but I know the fans are going to want to hear this before we go on to new things on how you guys met Shaq and how that came together.
That was crazy. Flavor Unit at the time, who was managing us, they got the phone call. And, you know, my other two group members, they're like fans of basketball. I'm not like that. I wasn't that basketball dude. I was just into just, you know, trying to be an MC. I wasn't looking at it.
Yeah.
So they told me, they was like, yo, first round draft pick, Shaquille O'Neal, da, 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 da. I was like, oh, okay. What does that mean? And they was like, bro, first round draft pick, man. You got to know he's Orlando Magic. And then I heard that I was his favorite MC and the group was his favorite group. So I was like, I don't know who he is or whatever. Flavor Unit flew us down to Orlando and I met him. And I'm standing there looking at this guy, and I was like, okay, so I went to the game prior. I seen him dunking on everybody and fucking up everything. I was like, God damn, he's a beast. Then he was like, yo, man, you know, I rhyme. And then it clicked. I said, you want to know something? Let's try something different. What's Up Doc was already recorded. Right? It was already recorded. We had it in the can, but we could not release it because that movie was out with Michael Jordan and Bugs Bunny.
Space Jam.
Right. We could not release it because Space Jam was like, nah. And we actually sampled Bugs Bunny in the chorus. Instead of us saying, what's up, Doc? We had Bugs Bunny in the chorus.
Gotcha. Okay.
So then it was like, no, you can't do it. So we went in and said, can we rock What's Up, Doc? And changed it. And we was like, I said, you know something? This would be dope since they did that with Michael Jordan. Let's put Shaq at the end of the record and, you know, see, you know, what could happen. So we get to the studio. Shaq walks in with a paper. The paper is a tattered piece of paper. It looked like it had all sorts of rips on it and shit, and he's holding it. I was like, that's your rhyme? He was like, yeah, man, I'm ready. I was like, all right, step in the booth. Let's see what you got. And he delivered. No one wrote anything. That was all him. So I stood there looking at him going, oh, shit. Because remember, it was hell for the engineer to mic him.
Oh, I'm sure.
Right, because it's the mic was already pushed to the last part of whatever.
I could imagine.
Right, so then he had to duck down a little bit. They mic'd him. He finally said his verse, and the only thing that we did was say, "Well, say that line over and say that line over." That was it, and that's how What's Up, Doc happened. And like right after that, I think 2 weeks after that, we dropped that. We dropped the record, and yeah, it went gold in a month's time. Yeah.
Wow. And also too, you know, for the people when they see the show, you also weren't recording in a Pro Tools setting. No. This is real engineering, real. Yes, you got to say this shit right.
Yes, you have to do it right. You know, the difference now is, you know, you can take as many takes as you want, and you weren't eating up. You're not going to eat up tape.
Yeah.
Back then, we were eating up tape.
Yeah.
So you have people talking about, bro, if you don't get this on this tape, it's going to be a problem. And, you know, normally if there's problems, they'd have to splice tape to make sure certain things sound a certain way. So I was just like, bro, listen, you know, you had to go in knowing your verse. That was it wasn't going in there and trying to do it. You had to know it by heart. You know, the day before, 2 days before, practice the day of, you go in there, you make sure you get everything down packed. So that's the one thing that I loved about back then, which carries over to now because I haven't changed. I make sure that I at least know half the verse, you know, half the verse by heart, and then everything else I just kind of freestyle before anything else, you know.
Yeah, and it actually shows when you go to a live show nowadays. The people that don't know their own records is because they can, you know, line by line, and you know, okay, I'll freestyle this last four.
Yeah,
and then it's done, you know, and you know, or whatever it is, and it's like you really see it. I mean, you really do see it. I you know, and I knew people back in the day that, you know, wanted to rap, and they had money, whether it was drug money or whatever, and their engineers be like, nah, you're not a rapper. I'm not wasting this tape. I'm not wasting my time. You know, I don't care how much money you have. You know, this is a process right here that takes
serious process.
A long, you know, hence the phrase, I'm gonna go cut a record. You literally going in there.
You're right. Yeah,
You know what?
absolutely.
I think what we should do, we should start something. All these new rappers have to go in the old analog studio and actually do a couple songs, and then we can release them and let them do what they want. Just to know how hard it was to make a beat, cut a record. You know, even beats. You know, my first drum machine, SP-1200, and I talk about this a lot. It was like 1 second sample time to try to put it together, and this, and you know, it's just it was tough. It was tough. I remember looking at when I first got my first MPC, and I probably stared at that thing for 2 days. Like, what am I supposed to do with this shit?
There you go.
Like, I have no idea what to do. And at the time, there's no YouTube. Only way you could do it was to dive in. But most people had at least one person that knew somewhat how to use it. And you'd be like, all right, show me how to do this. Show me. And you
right. Then
you lock yourself in your room.
On your own. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. But we on the bigger, better things. I know last year was crazy with COVID. I mean, we've never seen anything like this in our lifetime, in our grandparents' lifetime, even. You know, this was completely unprecedented. To give the COVID situation a little light, as artists, we were like, oh, you mean I have to stay and just do music in my house? Okay, no problem.
Right.
But, you know, for other people that don't have that, you know, it is like, wow, you know, but it's completely crazy. But you have new music coming out, new album. Let's talk about this a little bit. It's called Family Blood, I believe, or what was it?
Blood. It's called
Royal Blood. I'm sorry.
It's all good, brother. It's called Royal Blood. I love it. You know what I mean? It took me a minute to actually put it together, and I love the creative space that I'm in. To break it down, I just think that people would just have to listen to it.
Yeah.
Creativity out the ass. So I'm gonna say.
I mean, that was always you though. Right. I mean, you were always very creative.
Creativity out the ass. It hasn't changed, but it's somewhere else right now. And I think that, you know, we had a listening party last week, and the one thing that I understand is that when people don't hear from you in a while, they basically think about the last thing they heard from you, and they expect to hear something around there. But when everybody actually came in, and we had 80 records. We had to chop down 80 to 20 and then pick 7 out of 20. So what we did was we had a listening party. We played 20 records and had everybody pick 7 out of the 20. So, you know, when I started playing the records in it was like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, bro. And it was like, yo, this is friggin' crazy. So just with the response alone, I can't wait for people to actually to get the project, or, you know, when it's go time when we start releasing singles and releasing videos, man. And from just the snippets that I'm putting up on Instagram alone, and the amount of likes and you know, the inbox comments it's crazy that people are just like, yo, it's about time we hear something as creative as that. Let's go. So I know I'm on the right track, and, you know, trust and believe I'm going to deliver big this time. Yeah.
That's good. How do you feel being 2021, coming off a pandemic? It's been a minute, you know, I mean, as a hip hop artist, confidence is everything. So I mean it as in, you know, even the water temperature of what's out there. How are you feeling right now?
I feel great right now. I feel great. I don't feel stressed. I don't feel fearful. I don't feel that, because, you know, with everything, and I got to say this, with everything moving as fast as it was, you didn't really have time to think.
Yeah.
You didn't really have time to think, but to actually have everything slow down and you're sitting, especially being a creative, you're able to look at everything and break everything down into pieces and be like, oh, that's what that is. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. So I had enough time to do that when it came to being creative and listening to certain records and certain samples and saying, I want a record made out of this sample, or producers sending me stuff and I'm able to record at my own pace, send it back to them and have them mix it. And, you know, that's what, you know, worked for me. So I was always confident, never lost the confidence. But my thing is, you know, when everything moving so fast, I didn't want it to be a situation where I just got caught in the sweat and everybody's like, oh, he has an album, and then somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't want that. So with this time, having enough records as I have, I no longer want there to ever be a gap between projects or to be a gap between records. So, you know, to all the fans that have been reaching out to me over the years, like, yo, what are you doing?
Besides the necessary gap to give it wings, that is, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I just really, I'm in a good creative spaces. You know, I thank God for that. I'm super appreciative. And I just can't wait for the rollout where everybody just starts to get them in pieces and we just keep going, you know?
I feel that. Was it, and I mean this in the best way, was it different when you kind of jump on the saddle again and be like, yo, okay, so I'm sending this to somebody to mix and I'm doing it. I mean, did it take anything away from the way you used to feel?
No, because I never stopped recording. That's the one thing I've never stopped recording. The only thing that I stopped doing was playing it for people. I just didn't play anything, right? So for me to start, I think the difference was me saying, all right, let me let them hear this. And then I let people hear some shit and they're like, what the fuck? What are you doing? And I'm just like, all right, good. And even with the dates of certain records, you know, you sit with a record you think is dated to you because you hear it all the time. And then you let somebody else hear it and they're doing backflips and you're like, okay, now I get this. You know what I'm saying? You know, so for me, it was a beautiful thing to know that the creativity was respected. Everybody, it just seemed like everybody was in the same creative space. Like producers normally would wait for people to reach out to them. Producers were reaching out to artists. Like I had so many producers reach out to me, and I've never had a shitload of beats like that before in my life. You know what I mean? So it added to what I was doing, and I'm just, you know, super appreciative, man. I can't wait for everybody to hear this project for real.
I'm an independent artist myself and a producer and an engineer and everything. And we were just having this conversation. Recently I've been working with JD from the Lynch Mob. Mm-hmm. You know, Ice Cube's group, but he went to prison 28 years ago and just barely got out.
Right.
And you know, I don't send a lot of people beats. Like, you got to be in there with me. And if you hear something, you know, we could probably work or we do this.
Right.
But I just kind of got over exactly what you just said right now. You know what? Yeah, it's dated to me, but it's new to somebody that hasn't heard it.
New to somebody, exactly.
And I'm thinking to myself, and then I start going through these files I just put together, and it's like, you know, one file has like 600 something beats, another file has like 700, and
there you go.
And then I feel kind of stupid because I'm like, the fuck am I saving these for? Like, they're not collector's items.
No, they're not.
You know what I mean? And I was like, you know what? Finally, so literally within this last like 2 or 3 weeks, I've been grabbing all my beats, putting them into folders, emailing people to ask me for beats, you know, 6 months ago, 7 months ago. And now I have like 5, 6 EPs, you know, Yuck Mouth and J Hood and JD and Money B and Daddy O brought me in on some things with Speech and Chuck D and now, so it's like, wow, what if I would have done this 10 years ago? Where would I be right now if I had just got over my own self and do it? So, you know, I completely feel you on that. And it wasn't for any purpose, but it's like, I needed a purpose to send it to somebody, I guess. Right. Or
there you go.
But, you know, so I completely understand how you feel. So is there a date? Is there a release date yet? Or still waiting?
No release date yet. We're waiting, but we're actually, we'll be filming a video in 2 weeks. Right now, we're dealing with the treatment. We picked the single last week from the party. We was just like, all right, guys, what do you guys think the single should be? And it was friggin' unanimous. Cool. So we're now putting that together to make sure the visual matches exactly what the record is about. And we just gonna run. We're gonna run hard with this record right here.
Well, I, for one, am excited. I'm still a huge Fu-Schnickens fans and you know, a Chip Fu fan. I mean, man, there was at one point in time, I don't quite have the breath anymore being as old as I am, but I could definitely recite some Chip Fu lines, and people used to look at me like, you should rap. If you can say that back, you know what I mean? But I mean, honestly, that it used to warm me up. I mean, cause you talk about clearing your vocal cords, you know, recite a Chip Fu verse and tell me how you feel.
How you feel after that? You good? Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Well, man, I appreciate you taking the time. I really do.
No problem, brother.
I'm so excited to hear the new music, and you know, this is kind of what this show is about. I take a very musical approach to What's the Word podcast. I like to ask questions that, you know, you can't really just go on YouTube to another interview and just see a verbatim type, but there's also some key points that you still need to hit, especially, you know, there's a whole group of people that have no idea who you are out there. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I love hearing the history. I also love the history because, again, how we bring up, it was not easy to do music back then. You could have all the skill in the world and get in the studio and sound like shit.
Exactly.
Or get on stage and sound like shit. Or talk to the media and sound like a fucking idiot. You know what I mean? And there was I mean, for real, like,
you're right.
You see some of these kids in these interviews, and I'm like, yeah, that wouldn't have cut it back in the day.
But nope.
But no, I really appreciate you taking the time. We'll definitely have you back on, you know, as the album drop and as we get, you know, further along in the process, because I definitely want to talk about the singles and the videos, and obviously with the history that you have, we could talk for 3 hours and still not touch everything. So. But I appreciate you. Any last words to the fans and followers before I let you go?
Fans and followers, I call them fam. We all family. Just at this particular point in time, you know, just stay focused, and I'll be hitting y'all real soon. Y'all can follow me at @ChipFu on Instagram, @ChipFu on Facebook and on Twitter. And, you know, again, thanks for having me. I super appreciate you guys. And yeah, we'll talk soon, bro.
Absolutely. I appreciate you. It's What's the Word podcast with the legendary Chip Fu. Royal Blood's coming soon. Salute to you, my brother. We'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Take care.
Yep, for sure. Actually, and you know what's crazy is as soon as we got they stopped. So that worked out perfect. Can you hear me?
So, yeah, I can hear you now.
Literally, when we started the interview, they stopped outside, and I hear them starting it up again. So that was perfect time. Take care. Hey, anything you need from us, let us know. And like I said, too, you know, definitely let me know next time you touch down in LA. Usually where I do it, we got a beautiful, beautiful studio and kind of basically private compound in Pasadena. So definitely let me know and we'll get you in there. You know, I got studios too and everything like that. I engineer. So just, you know, anything you need from us, just let us know.
Appreciate you, brother. Definitely.
Appreciate you. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, cool.
Bye. Peace.